Said it in person, would have knocked your ass out. Sometimes things just have to happen. I know you think you're a tough guy because Strickland couldn't finish you. I'll finish you. Don't worry about that.
What did Sneako say to trigger you to diss him publicly, saying you want to fight, saying you want to end my career?
I mean, I could. I'm that guy.
These are very troubling times on the internet these days. The red pill wave is coming apart. We're seeing it be dismantled from the inside out. And there's been a lot of crazy things being said, some threats made, a bunch of shit talk. I was actually in the Discord that Sneako was in as this was unfolding, so I've got some things to add to this dialogue that people in the public aren't aware of. Call me a snitch if you want to, but hey, it was a public invite Discord. Even though I agree with Sneako more in this situation, I don't have any sort of loyalty to him, so I'll tell you guys what I know. It might shock you. It wasn't the liberals, it wasn't the left, it was them. The red pillars themselves, the infighting, self-destructed and imploded the entire movement, which was so powerful like a year ago, just because of some disagreements on the fundamental issues. They can all agree on gender, social dynamics, all that stuff. What they disagree on is the race-related things, which I've always liked and preferred that Andrew Tate and all of them kind of stayed away from the race stuff, because they don't need to be edgy when it comes to race, right? We can all come together and agree that masculinity needs to be reinserted into the culture, things like that. But race? So a lot of this rhetoric gets confused. Some of it's justified, some of it's not. For example, white supremacy, that's a horrible thing, right? But then again, the identity of a country, that's another argument. So the argument that's being made from Andrew Tate, from Nick Fuentes, Myron, and all of the people on that side is pretty much saying white people as a race are being eradicated and wiped out of their own country because we're allowing immigration on a mass scale, creating a culture where other races are celebrated, that the country is trying to appeal to too many different demographics and we can't really thrive as a country because we don't have a national identity. That's the argument being made from them, even though they use a bombastic and hyperbolic delivery when trying to say this.
Obviously, hyperbole. It's obviously an exaggeration. Exceptions don't disprove the rule. Blah, blah, blah. Calm down.
And Nick Fuentes, man, I wish he toned it down a little bit because he's very entertaining, but the things he says I can't get behind. He makes it hard to support him, but I definitely watch him, man. This guy's got me laughing my ass off most of the time. His ideas on white supremacy are mixed with a lot of truth, but obviously the message is flawed because, you know, there is no master race.
And you're like, Muhammad, can I have my country back? They go, my friend, of course you can. Hey, have you tried converting to Islam? But when a real white gets up and beats the chest and talks his shit and says, we invented everything, then they say, you're being a white. How about a little appreciation? Everyone else can talk about how great they are. They extol the supremacy of their culture. You ask them what time of day it is, and they'll tell you, as the prophet, peace be upon him, said, okay, I asked what time it was, pal.
And Sneako is kind of a lone wolf on his side of the argument, saying, hey, I don't think white supremacy is necessarily okay.
If you believe that you're superior because you're white, you are.
Now, to a lot of people, this might seem like the easy position to take, but not really. He's somebody who's built up his audience filled with people that are radical right-minded and people that want to hear the white supremacy rhetoric. They're people that follow Nick Fuentes, Myron, and Zherka, and they want to hear the more extreme take. When all of your colleagues and your entire audience disagrees with you on a take, it kind of feels like the world's crashing down on you. I like the fact that Sneako has agency now. It's not as if he's blindly following Andrew Tate and Fresh and Fit to whatever crazy position they go to. People call him a grifter, but I think that he's genuinely curious what the truth is. Now, obviously, him trying to make it as a social media influencer and having a chat, that's going to influence things to a certain degree. Now, I can respect him heavily for taking a stance against white supremacy because his fan base wants him to support that. Now, Nick Fuentes has obviously been on this for years. Here's a clip of him at 18 years old talking about why he attended a white supremacy rally.
It was to show solidarity for a cause which has not been talked about in the mainstream media, which the American people never got a vote on, and that is the fundamental transformation of the composition of our country.
It's crazy that we're having this conversation like this. I mean, that's not really top 5 concerns, even if it were a legitimate fear. I don't think that's really top 5 or 10 things that we need to be worried about and that need to be in the conversation right now. Race is very irrelevant. Sneako took a stance against it, and of course, everybody's attacking him for it. Something that he did, which is the most troubling thing for him in his position right now, is he took a hard stance against Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate is the person that he's kind of modeled himself after, up until now at least. He's pretty much aligned with every belief that Andrew Tate has, and there's been a little bit of a fall off behind the scenes. Apparently, Andrew Tate hasn't talked to him for a long time, and Sneako has been disagreeing with him more and more as time has gone on. But a lot of the times, I feel like Sneako used to be a pretty bad representative of what Andrew Tate was trying to push, right? So if Andrew Tate says something like, men are superior to women, if you ask Andrew Tate about this, he usually is smart enough to be able to defend that position logically and say, well, men are better than women at a lot of things. Men built society. Men are more focused on their careers. So he turns it into a logical argument. But a lot of times when Andrew Tate makes the hyperbolic statement, Sneako will repeat that statement without being able to defend it as articulately as Andrew Tate could.
It never makes sense to me.
Well, I just broke it down.
Let me explain. I speak to Eastern Orthodox, Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, Christian Scientists, Mormons. Everybody has a different definition.
Yeah.
Whether it's a form, it's a distinct being. Jesus is God. There's only one God. There's 3 gods.
Which Christians are you talking to that said there's 3 gods?
But yeah. Who do you pray to, Jesus or God? You said either one.
You can twist my language if you want, but as I already made clear, we're talking about hypostases. We're talking about the fact that any of them are God according to us, but we still pray to any of them as God. There's not really a distinction in regards that they are God, but there's no difference between that and saying you can call upon any of the names of your God.
So it ends up being a bad thing for Andrew Tate's movement. That's what I observed, at least for a long time. And Sneako was young. He was pretty young. He was in his very early 20s. Nowadays, it seems like Sneako's finding some agency. He's trying to find his own identity, and he doesn't want to push things that are outside of his moral convictions. That's what it seems like, at least. Whether I agree with him or not, I like the fact that he's straying outside of this opinion. Now, me personally, I found myself disagreeing more and more with Andrew Tate as time has gone on. Andrew Tate is somebody that checked a lot of boxes in terms of having like a symbol and a person that you can look to and say, okay, this person seems to have a lot of things figured out. They're delivering good information and they're doing it in a way that translates to people. So he checked a lot of boxes. But it seems like as time has gone on that he's kind of unchecking a lot of these boxes and he's creating some problems that make him not as good of a figure as I once thought he would be. He's important to the conversation, but it seems as if this is more of a power thing for him. He wants to be a cultural leader more so than delivering truths. It's a little bit different now. Things have changed. Nick Fuentes puts out his statement advocating white supremacy and race realism.
If you're a white person and you're not being called a white supremacist, you're a sorry, bud, we don't want mud eaters in our country. Try not being a cannibal. Try not living in open sewage. Learn how to read and build a 21st century structure. Then you can tell us about equality.
Now, guys, I'm aware that these statements are exaggerative and that they're made to be comedic and over the top, but there's a point, right? A large portion of Nick's audience will take this seriously and actually garner and hold hate for other races. Now, guys, I'm a hardcore conservative, but you have to be rational. The same way that you want the left to be rational when it seems like they're being over the top and like they can't see your point of view at all. You know how you see them do that? Well, when it comes to people like Nick Fuentes, that's how the left will see us. When we try to make sense of his statements too much, it just makes us all look bad. So Sneako came out on Twitter and publicly disagreed with Nick, and he got some crazy pushback for this. Everybody on the red pill side came to attack Sneako and defend Nick. Even Zherka, which isn't really surprising. By the way, I love Zherka. Can't get enough of that guy's content. He's great. But man, where's the loyalty for Sneako here? Everybody's against him. Now, the problem that I see is that Sneako seems to disagree on a fundamental level about white supremacy, but he doesn't actually understand the argument being made by them. So when he comes out attacking that position, he kind of looks a little silly because he's arguing the wrong point. So people are able to easily argue what he's saying. If Sneako were to come out and actually argue the need to protect the white race within a country, then he would have looked a lot better. You know, Sneako just arguing white supremacy is not helping anything really.
That was the tweet. Now, when I said this, Sneako, a few others got confused and like, oh, he's a white supremacist. That has nothing to do with what I've said. I've said that if white people do not have a white-only country, sooner or later they're gonna end up decimated. That's what I've said. That doesn't mean, oh, you said white supremacists are the best. You said white people are the best. Never said that. Where did I say white people are the best people in my tweet? Didn't say that.
So Sneako makes a public disavowalment of Andrew Tate, which is important because until now, they have not publicly dissed each other. They haven't been at odds with each other online or to the public eye. And what that does is it kind of weakens both of you. If you have a friend, you correct them in private, you defend them in public. And if you guys are on the same side of an issue, I can see how Andrew Tate would have taken that personally. It doesn't make either of them look good when there's infighting like that. It kind of weakens both of their positions. I was in the Discord. Sneako hosted a UFC event on his Discord, which is a little bit weird because I'm thinking like, you know, there's about 250 people, 150 people watching in the Discord, watching the UFC fight with him, and he's streaming it to everybody. So I didn't know how allowed that might have been, especially with how big Sneako is. You know, I guess that's okay. This is the reason he gets in trouble. Sorry, Sneako. When he switched to a new tab, it showed that he didn't even pay for it. He was using a streaming site. He was using Stream East. Anyways, God bless him. I was able to watch the fight for free. So when Andrew Tate made his first response, somebody named Jake Future, which is somebody who seems to have special needs, and a lot of these streamers host him in their streams. Sneako had Jake make a tweet towards Andrew Tate to try to ratio him.
White supremacists are totally right. Literally, they're not. Okay, Jake, you got to get this ratio on Tate. You got to get this. You could easily get it. Okay, I'm gonna send it to you.
So then somebody from chat ended up botting the like count, successfully ratioing Andrew Tate. So this is important because later on, Andrew Tate responds to Sneako and accuses him of botting the likes, which Sneako was definitely aware of because in the Discord, he mentions it a few times and kind of encourages it too. Andrew Tate calls him on this, and Sneako responds with a video saying, nobody's botting anything, nobody's doing that.
Andrew, nobody's botting likes. We're watching the fight right now with Jake Future. Nobody's botting likes, bro.
Which obviously isn't true. He's acting stupid like he doesn't know anything, but he definitely knew what was going on. He knew about the bots. I was there. Trust me. Sneako quotes Islam, quotes scripture to him. He's pretty much trying to make Andrew Tate look like a hypocrite. Andrew Tate's not really having that, so Andrew Tate responds with, there's a reason I stopped talking to you a long time ago, which is obviously kind of going low. Now, in this Discord, guys, I promise, Sneako was hyped up for these fights. He was commentating on everything. He was interacting with chat. After Andrew Tate said this, Sneako's mood dropped. Everyone in chat noticed it. His vibes went down. These were genuine reactions. He seemed genuinely upset, which I understand, right? Like, that's probably an idol of his and an inspiration. He built his identity based on Andrew Tate and his philosophy. So for him to separate with him and publicly kind of confirm, like, there's a reason I stopped talking to you, that's probably very hurtful. Sneako didn't really like that. He responded to a few things.
You said that white supremacists are totally right. I give a fair criticism based off of Islam there, and you're like, I don't like you. You're not on the cool kids table. If that's what you believe instead of Islam or instead of what I'm talking about, then okay.
No, Sneako, that's not what happened. You did not give a fair criticism based on Islam. Firstly, it is not your job in Islam to criticize anybody. That's the first thing. Second thing, you questioned my faith and called me a Jew. So you were responded to in kind. You cannot be a passive-aggressive little girl. I understand you're young. But if you talk that way to people, you're going to be responded to a certain way. And you do it all the time. It's not just me. It's just who you are. You're very like smarmy, snarky. That's who you are. That's fine. But you deserved it. And you got brutally wrecked because you deserved it. Because you can't call me a Jew. And also, just because you've been Saudi and I've been trapped on house arrest, you don't get to be a better Muslim than me and tell me how the world works either, friend. If you said it in person, I would have knocked your ass out. And I would have helped you get up afterwards and said, sorry, sir, I had to break your jaw. Sometimes things just have to happen. You know, I know you think you're a tough guy because Strickland couldn't finish you. I'll finish you. Don't worry about that. I'm built different.
And then later on, Andrew Tate made a stream publicly addressing this information, saying some crazy things about Sneako, digging in the sword.
I thought I'd explain this one because a few people got confused, including Sneako. And guys, I know everyone's giving him a hard time right now, but I'm not here to end Sneako's career. I mean, I could. I'm that guy. But I'm not here to do that to the guy. You know, he's young. He's young. It's kind of interesting. You know, I've always noticed this about him. He's kind of like one of those girls who like starts a fight and gets in your face and says, hit me then, hit me, hit me, hit me. And then like hits you 3 times, hit me. And then you hit her and she's like, oh, I don't need to implode his career. If he wants to ruin his career, he can do it himself. Carrying down this asinine path of insanity.
So Sneako comes back out later on the next day and responds with all of the things that he has to say, pretty much saying that Andrew Tate is a hypocrite, he's not pushing the right messaging, and that he should be able to take criticism and pushback from Sneako.
Whatever, because I have been publicly defending Andrew Tate. Everybody has seen it relentlessly for years, to the point where it was a meme, where I was taking hits on my own reputation. Never Heard a word of thanks, never heard a word of consolation. That's fine. The truth is more important. I don't need to get approval. I don't care. The first time you speak about me is negative and trying to tear down what I've brought, to try to tear down my career. In fact, I think I deserve credit for helping your reputation with Gen Z. Who else was really saying this? I mean, I love Aiden, and I think you've been disrespectful to Aiden as well, but a lot of people were quiet. A lot of people didn't say a word because they didn't want to risk their reputation in case that you were actually guilty. People see through this. People see through this. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother my community, the audience, but people are going to see through this, and it's going to damage your reputation as the beacon of truth, the beacon of masculinity. Wait, what about brotherhood? What about loyalty? What about truth? What did Sneako even say to make you this upset? What did Sneako say to trigger you to diss him publicly and then make a whole stream correcting him and threatening to saying you want to fight, saying you want to end my career?
I agreed with a lot of the philosophies, a lot of the points being made, but I think, guys, it's time to move on. We do need to think independently, and that's something that the red pill influencers would push. You need to think independently. So the fact that you guys are now kind of hive mind towards whatever the red pill is pushing nowadays, you know, that goes against the core fundamentals that are being taught. It's like a paradox, right? The teachings are to say that you have to have a free mind, but the teachings that are telling you that are also kind of making you lockstep into that type of echo chamber. So it's a little bit different. I think we need to be able to critique even the people that are telling us that we need to critique everything. Like I said, I'm finding myself separate myself from, you know, just following what he says. There are a lot of things that make me raise an eyebrow. When you have a figure like Andrew Tate that checks most of the boxes, you know, the boxes that aren't checked, sometimes it's easier just to check them for him, right? Like if he says 99% truth, but the 1% you don't really agree with, sometimes it's easier as human beings to subconsciously just make yourself agree with that 1%, so that way you have a perfect figure to look at. And a lot of people do that. People do that with Trump. People do that with everybody that's a public figure that could be perfect, but they're so close to being that you just make that last part perfect. You kind of do mental gymnastics to make this person out to be like the savior, the person, when they're not. They're just human beings. You will never agree with one person 100% of the time or any sort of ideology 100% of the time. So I think it's time that we separate ourselves from these people. Separate our thought process from the people selling you a thought process. We're here because of the insistence and pushing of masculinity. That's why we're here. We're not here for this fucking race shit. I hate even talking about it, right? I hate talking about stuff like that. I'm more interested in the things that we can do to build ourselves and make ourselves better. It's so important not to get high on philosophy. It's important to sit here and analyze the things that we actually believe and then the things that we are just following because it's a fun grift. Don't get so locked into, I need more extreme, more extreme, more extreme, more extreme. You know, take the ideas for what they are when they're delivered to you. And Sneako, if you're watching this, bro, let's collab, bro. Let's get on Discord. Zherka, you too. I'd love to talk to all of you guys. Nick Fuentes, that'd be a great conversation. So guys, subscribe, like the video. It helps me out a lot, and I'll see you guys next time. Appreciate it.